Hey guys, and welcome back to another command block tutorial. Oh, you didn't recognize me? Yeah, that's understandable, because today we're going to be transforming ourselves into the Warden. And you'll notice that we actually have both of the Warden's attacks, as well as actually the ability to look and move around as the Warden. Ignore that. But yeah, we can actually move around as the Warden. It looks a little bit better in third person, but it does actually work in first person, as you can see. I can actually see where I'm going and navigate. But it's a bit easier to use the Warden attack if you're in third person, just because you kind of actually get to see a little bit better what's going on. Some of the animations do actually block your vision in the first person mode. But you guys can see I am actually moving around as the Warden. Additionally, I do have two separate abilities that I can do. The first one is that if I hold Sneak, I will actually charge up and do a Sonic Boom attack. The second of these being, if I actually hold a Skulk Catalyst in my hands, as you guys can see in my hotbar, I can actually just absolutely beat down with my Warden. In fact, if I summon in another Warden just for fun, give me a second here, and I go up to this guy, I can just start beating him up. And it's actually going to kill him pretty fast, because you guys know Wardens actually have a lot of health, so it might not look super quick right now, but it's actually going to end up killing this guy pretty quickly. He does 20 damage per hit, which is enough to kill a player if they're not wearing armor in a single hit. So yeah, that is how you actually become the Warden. Now, some of you guys who have followed my channel for a while might realize I already did a tutorial on how to become the Warden, which is where I did my original Sonic Boom attack. However, looking back on it, thought it was a bit outdated and decided it was time to update it so that way you can actually become the Warden. Now, I will say, I'm gonna warn you this, it looks better if you're in creative. It does look a little bit weird if you're in survival. This is what it looks like. Basically, the Warden's gonna aggro on you, and so he's going to be constantly trying to murder you. So it's a bit odd, but he won't actually be able to kill you, so that's not a huge concern if you don't care. You're still able to use all of his abilities. Obviously, this is going to be the special melee that's going to damage anything. Once again, the animations are just a bit wonkier, and you are still able to do the Sonic Boom attack. So, still completely functional in survival. The only thing is, he's just going to attack you. But yeah, right now we're going to get into the tutorial, but if you guys stick around to the end, I'm going to do a little fight scene where basically I just wipe out a ton of mobs by becoming the Warden. I should also mention that the way you actually switch between being the Warden and not is having this Skulk Catalyst in the last slot of your hotbar. So you guys are going to see if I take it out, I am no longer the Warden. And if I put it back, a Warden is going to dig himself up out of the ground, and I get to control him. So, pretty cool stuff. I should also mention, if you guys don't hold down the Sonic Boom for long enough, you won't actually finish it. So if I hold it down by sneaking, it will finish it. If I let go early, it's going to finish the animation without firing. Just as a heads up. But yeah, let's get into the commands. So this command right here is just a test. This one just allowed me to test some stuff, don't worry about that. But this is what the actual commands that we have here. So this is going to be the summoning and the killing of the Warden. This is going to be some effects as well as the teleportation you get while you are the Warden. And this right here is going to be the melee. This over here is going to be what is actually allowing the Sonic Boom attack to be a real projectile. You're also going to notice that it is actually able to fire up and down, and it's going to properly copy the rotation that you're looking at, like up, down, and left and right, which is something my old tutorial didn't do. In fact, I'm fairly certain the older tutorial isn't even fully functional right now, which is part of the reason I wanted to do a complete overhaul of that tutorial and make this one. But without further ado, let's get into the actual tutorial. So the first one's pretty simple. I know it looks like a lot. I promise you it isn't. All we're doing is checking, does the player have a Skulk Catalyst in their hotbar, specifically slot 8. Now you might be thinking, well, this is the 9th slot of our hotbar. Why are we labeling it as 8? Well, I've probably discussed this in other tutorials, but Minecraft counts at 0, as with all coding essentially. So this right here is slot 0. Slot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. That's why we're doing slot 8. You're going to see that a lot. That's why. Next up, we're just going to be doing the opposite. So basically, We're executing at the Warden. If there is no entity within 10 blocks that has this item in their hotbar, it's just going to kill the Warden. So if the player teleports out of the radius or something like that, it's just going to get rid of the Warden, no biggie. Next up, we're going to be doing the actual teleportation. What we're doing here is just checking at the player, holding the item, yada yada yada, teleporting the nearest Warden named Warden. I should mention it's not any Warden, it is specifically a Warden named Warden. It's going to tell them teleport the Warden slightly behind the player. This is that way you can still actually see in first person mode. And then they're just going to be facing the same direction as the player. Pretty simple. Next up, we're just going to be giving a lot of different effects to the player. The first one is invisibility. Same thing, we're checking does the player have the skull catalyst in the right slot? If so, invisibility. Next up, player's going to get night vision. Next up, resistance. This is going to make it so that if you are in survival, the guy isn't going to be able to actually murder you. Similarly, you're going to be getting instant health once again so that the Warden can't murder you. We're also going to get rid of any darkness because technically the Warden's actually blind, but you know, we're just going to get rid of the darkness. That way it's not too annoying when you actually are the Warden yourself. And lastly, just something to give the invisibility because we don't want to be able to see whatever you're holding. It'd be weird if the Warden had like a sword or a block in his stomach. So we have a little play animation here that's happening that essentially shrinks the player's torso, which makes it so you can't see any helmet, chest plate, or anything in the player's hand. Then we're going to do the actual melee attack, which is pretty simple. All it is on a 10-tick delay. We're just going to be executing at, once again, any player that's holding it. I should mention this time it is slightly different because we're not checking what slot it's in. We're checking if the player is holding it. That is the skull catalyst item. If so, we're going to play the attack animation to the nearest Warden. And we're also going to be doing this as the damage command. This is checking, once again, is the player holding the correct item? Is there a Warden nearby? If so, go 2 blocks out in front of the player and then damage anything that's not named Warden that is also not holding a skull catalyst. You're not hurting yourself, but you are able to still attack other players with this. And we're going to do 20 entity attack damage. If you guys want to increase or decrease this, you can make this higher or lower. Additionally, if you want to make the attack speed faster or slower, make this number higher or lower. If you want to make it attack faster, make this a lower number. If you want to make it attack slower, make this number higher. But that's all you need for the actual melee as well as the morphing into the Warden. So this last section is really going to allow you to actually shoot out the Sonic Blast. And you can see we even have like the animations and everything all lined up. So it actually looks really cool. And I promise you, it looks like a lot of commands, but we actually have a lot of repeating commands. So it's not quite as bad as you'd think. So what we're doing here is we're just going to be executing at the player, and I should mention we are going to use scoreboards. So something you're going to need to do is type in chat scoreboard objectives add Warden and dummy. Type this into chat at some point or the range attack stuff is not going to work. So you need to type that in. I already have, so it's going to give me an error. Don't worry about that. But all we're going to be doing is essentially checking is the player with the skull catalyst, that means they are the Warden. And then we're going to be doing unless entity. So what this is doing is it's actually detecting if the player is sneaking. If the player is sneaking, it's going to increase its Warden score by 1. And this is on a 1-tick delay. On the other side, what we're going to be doing is checking is the player not sneaking. So we have if entity instead of unless entity. This checks to make sure the player is not sneaking. If so, it's going to set the Warden score back to 0, resetting the cooldown for the attack. Next up, this is going to be the actual animation. So as soon as the player starts charging the Warden score, then it's actually going to do this play animation at the nearest Warden. Once again, that's named Warden. And this is the animation for the attack. Pretty simple. Next up, we're actually going to, once the Warden score is 40, that means the player has been charging it until the score equals 40, we're going to summon a boat 51 blocks above our head. This boat is going to actually represent the projectile, and it's just far in the sky so you can't actually see it. Immediately after this, we're going to give the tag Sonic B to this boat. We're basically checking above the player 51 blocks for a boat, giving it the tag Sonic B, short for Sonic Boom. Then after this, we're just going to make it so at about the score of 35, we're going to play the roar sound from the Warden, and that's just going to essentially make it sound like it's roaring. So just to show you guys what that looks like with the scoreboard visible, scoreboard objectives to play sidebar. So you can see we have a few scoreboards on the side of the screen. You could ignore those. We're using the same scoreboard for the duration of the boat, which is why you're going to see multiple scores. Only bother looking at the one that's for my name. So what's going to happen is I need to activate Warden mode. Let this guy come in. And then once he is up and running, you guys can see that I'm going to sneak really quick. So he's going to enter the animation, but he's not actually going to shoot because I didn't sneak the whole time. So the Warden didn't get to fully charge up his attack. But if I do, then we're actually going to get to see the attack go off. And of course, you guys can see it is shooting a real projectile that is aimed wherever I'm looking. That even means, unlike the last version of this tutorial, I can actually look up at an angle. Boom, it's going to shoot exactly where I'm looking. It's really great. Going to aim every time. Then it's also going to travel for a set distance. If you guys see here, I'm going to fire towards this wall. And because it has a limited duration, it's probably going to run out. Nope, it actually didn't run out before the wall. I need a longer angle. So I'm going to charge this up. As you can see, it does have a limited duration. It might actually hit the wall before it decays, and it's gone right past here, past this chest. So it does actually have a limited duration. I will also mention, if you fly too far away from your Warden, it's going to have to respawn multiple times, so don't move too fast. But yeah, it has a limited duration, so I'm going to show you what that is real quick before we move into what's actually happening with the boat. So what we're doing is on a 0-tick delay. We're just going to be adding 1 Warden score to anything with the tag Sonic B. That's going to be the boats. Additionally, once the Warden score is 80 or higher, we're just going to kill it. This is just to make sure you don't have a whole bunch of boats sitting around in your world, as that is generally considered to be not good. Lastly, we actually just have a couple of repeating commands, so this may look like a lot, but it really isn't. It's just 3 commands repeating 3 times. So let's just look at what they are. What we're doing is we're looking at the Sonic boat, and we are running a particle 50 blocks downwards. The reason we're doing 50 blocks downwards is you gotta remember the boat is actually 50 blocks in the air, and it's actually keeping place of the projectile, but pretending the projectile is 50 blocks downwards. Next up, we're doing a teleport commands. So it's just going to teleport the boat 0.5 blocks or half a block in the direction it's already looking, and that's it. Lastly, we're going to be executing at the Sonic Boom that has a Warden score of 2 or higher. This means it's not going to actually attack the Warden who shot it or yourself, but it will damage anything else that it hits. Going once again 50 blocks down with a DX of 0. This means anything that has a hitbox that collides with this projectile, that's what DX equals 0, that just means it collides with a hitbox, is going to take 20 damage. Once again, you can adjust, increase, decrease the damage, whatever you see fit. That's entirely up to you. But I will show you all these commands, but they are entirely repeats, so I'm not going to go over them. This is the same particle command, the same TP commands, the same damage commands. Same particle, same TP, and the same damage. The reason that we are actually repeating these commands over and over again is that the Sonic Boom can travel faster. Because we could do higher distance of teleportations, but that would mean that it would actually skip over and be less likely to hit something. If we do it like this, it's going to hit pretty much everything and be able to move pretty fast. So that's why we're repeating it. But anyways, that is it for the actual... Oh, it is really dark for me to do first person, third person, whatever. That is it for the actual tutorial. If you guys enjoyed, I'm really glad you did. If you guys have questions, feel free to check it out on the Discord. Additionally, if you actually made it to the end of the tutorial, because I know not all of you do, then I want you to show it by leaving a comment where you capitalize every vowel in your comment. That means every A, E, I, or U, A, E, I, O, or U, you're going to capitalize that. Don't tell anyone why you're doing this. So it's only a secret that for those who actually made it to the end, capitalize your vowels. So keep it a secret, but just do that if you made it actually to the end. Once again, if you have any questions, ask on our Discord, but I'm going to end off the video by doing a little fight sequence, so I hope you guys enjoy.